Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. There are quite a few things that you can do to make sure that when it's actually time to build your application, or when it's actually time to start coding and building your project, you're not like lost upside down and backwards, not knowing where to go, what to do, what your next step is going to be. Because the more you plan out before diving into like just bashing out a whole bunch of code, the better your experience will be when it's actually time to build out that application. So, okay, I hope that you like it. I hope that this helps you out. If you're stuck, if you're like, head is upside down, dripping out of the nose, don't know where to go, I got you on this one. All right? So the first tool that I'm going to share with you is Trello. So basically, one of the key things, like you don't even have to dive into Trello first. Some of the key things that you can do is just like you get a pen, a paper. First, you write out some bullet points of things that you want your project to do. In fact, it would be really good if you have an idea of what you want your project to do, to then start writing the user stories for your project, right? If you don't know what user stories are, these are just like little key points that you can write in the perspective of a user using an application. Like as a user, as someone, as like a new person coming to this application, maybe you're making like a Yelp kind of app. I want to see all the reviews for a restaurant that I'm interested in ordering from, because I do not want to order from a shady, out of the nose, Bob in the face restaurant that's gonna clock my credit card as well as my digestive system. Okay, so that's I guess that's a widely detailed user story, but I'd say go for a minimum of 6 user stories when you're planning out your application. Okay, in fact, one of my friends, a blog post actually talking about user stories, and I think I'm going to link this blog post in the description below. It's just a good breakdown of user stories, how you can use them, right? Essentially, you have, as a user, I want to do something because something, right? I want a function or functionality because of a problem that I have in the past, or a problem that I want to solve. In fact, a good thing that I'd like to note, one of my professors right now, he said something that was pretty cool. Essentially, a program and an application is made to solve a problem, right? When you're creating a program, and if you don't have a problem to solve, you don't have like, be it for yourself or someone else, then I don't know what kind of program you're making. Is it actually a good program? No, because it's not really solving a problem. It's not solving anything. It's not helping anyone. It's not making anything convenient for anyone, right? So if your application is not solving a problem, I would start working around, rethinking, adding some ideas that could potentially be useful or helpful to other people. Why? Because no one wants to use an application that doesn't do anything for them. Be it providing entertainment, helping out with a cause, making things a bit more convenient, easier, things like that. So yeah, write your user stories, like a user story for Uber. As someone who's trying to get from point A to point B in New York City, I want to be able to know who I'm driving with beforehand and have a map on my phone so that I know that I'm going where I asked to go. Before things like Uber, yes, you could hail a taxi cab, but one, there was no telling if the taxi cab was actually taking you where you wanted to go, and two, a lot of taxis, when you give them your location, they could like just say, no, I don't want to go there, no, I'm not taking you. With Uber, your pre-selected destination and the person is already agreeing to drop you off at X location, so of course they're going to drop you off. And one, that makes it safe for you, And two, that also made it safe for drivers, right? Because drivers also know who's using the application to try and get them to drive them to point A, from point A to point B. The payment is made via the application directly, so the driver doesn't have to worry about, like getting to that destination, getting threatened by the person who clearly has no intentions of paying the driver. Like, there's so many things. Uber, like stuff like Uber, Lyft Jr., they all solved problems and made transportation a lot easier and safer and more convenient for people on both ends of the spectrum, the customers as well as the drivers. Now, yes, everything has its pros and cons, but these are just some examples. And in fact, let's click on Trello again. This is our Trello board. Let's create a new board. YouTube video example. And like, they use a lot of photos from Unsplash that you can just get here for free for different backgrounds. Click see more, you could just keep scrolling. These look pretty cool. Why not? Okay, cool. So here is our Trello board. So now this is a project management tool. You create your list and then you can add your card. So essentially, like, let's say you start working on a project, you can add other teammates to the Trello board, right? So you can create a team, you can create a business team, you can create a board starting with a template. And yeah, like eventually, like once you can invite people, and then look, so once you have this, let's say you have different tasks that you want to set up. Maybe you can even put user stories over here. You can make a user stories list. Then you can have a to do, and then a doing, and then a complete or done, right? So essentially, like bare bones, like minimum application you can have is this with the user stories. Let's say user, I want to, what is this? Oh, look, I want to learn how to plan projects so that I don't spend a bunch of time stuck on one thing or direction when I start coding. Right, so like here's like, I guess this one's very long-winded, but you get the idea. And like, let's say to do, essentially like, okay, so we could handle like user backend. And I guess this will be like a model for like a to-do app. So task backend. Task backend. You can have more descriptions, create the model and controller functional for a task. You can save that. You can add checklists. You could just call it a checklist. And one of the things you can do is say model, or if in fact if you want two different checklists, maybe you want one checklist for the model, which will handle like let's think about custom methods for a task, relationships. We can think of validations. I don't know why this keeps this capital sometimes. So now you have all these, and now we have like the controller. And let's like do a regular thing like get all tasks, get one task. I'm gonna use like the restful verbs. Patch, put one task, create one task, and delete one task. So now we have all of these here. As you start going onto this, another cool thing that you can do, like you can assign a due date. So let's say this entire sheet is due tomorrow at 7:49 p.m. You can save that. You'll get a notification 1 day before, right? So now you put this here. September 9th, you have like all the checklists in that you want to do. You have some descriptions here. If you wanted to add like more like bullet points for clarity, right? So now we have some bullet points for clarity, right? So login time. So like, okay, so we have a few tasks over here. Of course, I'm not going to go in too much. I'm just going in enough so that you can get an idea of how to use Trello, right? So let's say you're working on a team or a group of people, or even if you're just working by yourself, whenever you move a task from, like, you know, you move something from one card to another, all this stuff is tracked right here in activity. So first it'll tell you, like, it tells you what activities were created, added, removed, updated. And then when it says like Alexander has just moved user backend from to do to doing, now all the other people on your team can clearly see that you're currently working on the backend user model and or controller for this application. So they're just not going to touch any of those files. So like now you don't even have to talk to the user. Remember, for some folks that I was saying, if you've seen some of the Git videos, I talk about like collaborating with others, like always keeping in contact with each other, making sure that you're not stepping on each other's toes to avoid merge conflicts, and just like working on specific parts of the repository, pushing that up, making the pull requests, and adding your partners as reviewers, right? So that they could see what has happened, and then you all merged in, and then everybody knows that that task was done. They can pull that down on their master. You understand Git flow already because you've seen the Git videos. Darling, I know you have. Now with this, if they have their Trello sheet up, you have your Trello sheet up. You know how WebSockets work. These things happen, update real time, right? So they'll see that I just moved the user backend from to do to doing, and then our mate James has moved task for the task backends from to do to doing. He does something, he checks off these, and then he checks off this. So he checks off a few tasks, he's done, and then he moves it back to do because he wasn't able to finish the tasks. So now, let's say we all see that this is something very important, but we know that Timothy, who just was only able to complete some of these tasks, he had, like, you know, his grandma had limba. His grandma had limba, and so he had to stop working, he had to run. But we see like this one has a priority. Maybe we move that priority up to 7 a.m. And we know these tasks need to be done by tomorrow at 7:49 a.m. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop working on my task that doesn't have any priority or set date, and I'll grab the rest of these tasks. Of course, Timothy's writing nice, clean, usable code, and he has nice comments in his code. I can understand what's going on. And then even so, this task has a description of what this thing has to do. So I can just jump in. I know exactly, oh, I need to create, like, you know, I need to handle these patch and put requests, and I need to handle these deletes, and maybe let's add some validations over to the model here. And now this is finally done. So now we can mark this as complete. This is complete. We can move this to done. And then now I can go back to you working on my user again. And all of this is updating real time right over here in the activity table. So yeah, that's Trello. Project management application. There are so many others like Trello that you can use. This isn't the only one. Other tools that you can use that are free to use. One thing I love using is InVision. My bad. InVisionApp.com. So if you go to InVisionApp.com, you're going to see InVision. You can sign in or sign up for free. I do have an account, so I'm just going to sign in.
And you know, I'll be looking at this and I seen little yoga pants coming out the nail salon. So I looked, I peeped that ass out, and I was like, damn, she thick as f. Turn around, TT. I was like, damn, what you doing out here with all this ass? Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon, hella ass, the sun is still out.
Okay, gonna start recording the screen again, right? Okay, here's InVision. I'm doing this all over again. essentially, when you're trying to wireframe your applications and plan out and draw, like you can create mock-ups and stuff like that, you can use InVision. This is something that I use in one of my internships. This is also something that I use as a student a lot, something that I use for my independent projects, and I think it's just a really useful tool. This was one of my Mod 3 projects when I was a bootcamp student. Yes, I went to a bootcamp, but I'm still trying to finish my degree part-time while I'm working full-time. I do have a video about all of that and why I did the things I did and doing the things that I'm doing. It's just really long and I need to edit it. I need to find time to do that, so I will try to get that to you before end of October. Yes, I say end of October because editing it's the time for me. And I know I made the time management video, please don't clock me for that. But let's get back into it. Okay, so here we have InVision. This was like a fitness application that I made with my friend Kevin. Shout out to Kevin, very great man, very iconic, very chill. Overall great partner to work with. So this is like, you know, you can just sketch out everything that you want. Here we have login, registration page, or we can have like a login and register. Right, you have your main page, your home, and then you can section it out. See, we drew orange around like each potential div, right? Because you're sectioning out your application. You have your nav bar over here, then you have like the main section of the app. Inside that main section, you have like a filter along with the buttons to like create a new routine. See, we had this in two places because we weren't sure, do we want this over here with the filter, or do we want this outside of the filter? Or like, you know, how are we gonna position this thing, essentially? Okay. All right, okay. And then, another thing that I did, we went back to InVision and then we just went to create a new application using the plus right over here. You can create a new freehand. Cool 2.0. And here you can create a blank canvas, you can create like some brainstorm, wireframe, diagram, retrospective, a stand-up, icebreaker. So like there's so many cool things that you could do. Of course, this app is even more robust than it was when I first used it. Here we click on wireframe. They have all of these items. Look, it's saying wireframe about this template. Rapidly create your own wireframes with pre-built typography and interface elements. Click and drag to select one of the stickers, then copy and paste it into your workspace, right? So you can take all of these, the typography, the forms, buttons, and links. All of these are here, so all you have to do is click on one of them. You can like do one of these things. You can do Command C and then Command V to paste something. Or another thing you can do with InVision is if you like highlight something. If you highlight something or you like go to click on something, you hold Option and then you drag it, that'll do the copy and pasting for you in one swift motion. If you do like hold Shift while you do that, then it keeps it on that level. It keeps it like, you know, uniform. So you don't have to worry too much about like the wireframe getting sloppy or messy or drunk or anything like that. But here you have it. These are all the stuff that you can do. And then, okay, so now we can start doing our work right in here. You can click on one of the shapes, and boom. There you have a mobile thing. You can have like your login, and your sign up, buttons, login, sign up, sign in. Right, so you can actually use text, or you can just, if you're doing like a bare bones thing, right, and you have this like that, you can just create a whole bunch of copies of this, and then so on and so forth, right? The template has text that you can use for typography if you want to grab one of these. So if you actually want actual text in here, then you can really make this as robust or as minimal as you'd liked. Yeah, so that's InVision. I will link everything that I use here today in the description along with bonuses, right? We spoke about user stories so far, Trello boards for management, in terms of managing tasks. And we've also spoken about using tools like InVision for wireframing and mock-ups. So, okay, here is something, there's the next tool. If you're planning out your database, this quick DBD, this is quick database designer. It is so good. It is so good. The reason I opened this in incognito, because if you have been to the site before, it doesn't take you through this nice little tutorial, my guy. But this is a nice little fresh tutorial. It's like, please click on next for a quick tour of quick DBD. So you will go through this when you first go to this, when you first come to this website, but I just want to do this with you so you can see what's happening. I think this is really nice. So here is where you define your schema. Then the diagram will appear here. You can drag these around however you want, and you can have your docs and syntax there. You could save it. You can export it as an actual SQL file. Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty neat. If like you want to change things, like they give you this template now, you could just mess around with this template, but essentially here is a database schema. If you wanted to change something, here we go. User has an ID, PK, int, name, string, email, string, password, digest, string. Yeah, so you have things like this. You could just create it in the database. This is like nice, really quick. You see how it is generated real time right in front of you. And yeah, that is the quick database designer. So this is also something I do when I'm creating my application. Okay, I mean, there is a lot more to project management, but I just gave you some of the simple tools that you can use for these things. If you ever want to do anything, yeah, this is everything. This is like all the basics, like a bare minimum. If you use some of these tools or different tools, but to do these things: one, planning out your database schema; two, having user stories, making your wireframes. If you're able to do those, and then as well, when you make your user stories, you can even section them off between like MVP versus post MVP, right? We can have MVP, post MVP. And then instead of to do, or yeah, so then you can just like, you have them here, and then you can check out what user stories you have, all your user stories, and then drag in the necessary user stories into your MVP versus post MVP. So like whichever place you think that user story should belong, that's where you're going to be dragging the user story. And then once you have that all sectioned off, you can just destroy this list, archive this list, and then you can keep that here. And then essentially the whole team would just go through all of the user stories in MVP and drag them over to do. Once all the MVP tasks are done, then we can start working on the post MVP paths. All right, so yeah, that's about it for the video. I hope that this has helped you in some way, shape, or form in terms of setting up your application, planning your application, executing your application, and yeah, try to solve someone's problem today. And I will see you in the next video.